Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Today we'll be doing two things. We'll be looking at the testimony of the National Police Commissioner, General Hangwani Maumela, to Parliament, which happened yesterday. And we'll also talk about this SIU unit seizure of Lamborghinis and various assets belonging to Hangwani Maumela, a relative of the President Cyril Ramaphosa, and a connection of Benjani Chauke, the advisor to the President. Let's start with the SIU. Let's get that out of the way. Hangwani Maumela's cars were seized, but we still don't have not a single one, front-facing picture of this man. His mansion was raided. There were no pictures in that whole mansion. Not one picture that the journalists were able to show us about where he lives and who he is. Not about where he lives, about who he is, who he hangs out with, no friends, nothing. We were not told anything. Find that to be particularly odd, right? I mean, we're seeing all kinds of cars, even the baby's cars, but we still can't see this man's picture. Journalists used to go so far as to go through the trash of EFF MPs to tell us what they were drinking, what they were buying from Zara and H&M. They were even collecting condoms. It was quite spectacular to see how zealous journalists could be at various times. Journalists told us everything about Brian Shivambu, what he was doing, Floyd Shivambu's brother, with the money that he got from VBS. I think his company was called Vele. Then they told us that money went to the EFF. They told us what Malema was buying in malls. They told us what Floyd Shivambu was buying. They were telling us the color of Malema's shoe bottoms, everything, what they were doing in Durban, July, what they were doing here, there, everywhere. Journalists told us every Zuma family member name, Khulubuse Zuma. They showed us his cars. They showed us every chance that they could get. They showed us the man. They showed us Jacob Zuma's family members. Somehow, this fellow, Hangwani Maumela, gets to be called a tycoon, a businessman. He gets the privacy to actually go about his ways, even though his activities have actually desecrated and decimated the hospitals and maybe even other places where he was operating his business model of Hoshkari behavior. So he gets these labels: tycoon, businessman, privacy. We don't get to make his face a household name. Khulubuse Zuma, household name. Tutuzani Zuma, household name. Songs, Ubabaga Tutuzani. People were profiling these individuals in a way that Hangwani Maumela does not get to be profiled. His name gets mentioned. And people will say, yes, we mentioned him in our books, etc. But where's his picture? Where's his front-facing picture? How's he spending his money? How come we don't know his partner? How come we don't know the kind of details that you've told us about other individuals? I still find that to be a shortcoming. And I still find that media is very hesitant to mention his connections. He's very connected to Benjani Chauke. By now, we should have an extensive profile of Benjani Chauke, his relationships with Hangwani Maumela, and not whispers, right? And Benjani Chauke is an advisor to the president. He's helped the president in dealing with a variety of things. Yesterday, when that property was being, assets were being seized at that mansion, there was a property next door that was of interest. And it seems as if that went past a lot of people. It was actually social media. Shout out to all of the people on social media who started spotting that the property had lots of blue lights in the property vehicles. The next door property is important and must be looked into, because if it's Benjani's blue lights that were there, then we need to get clarity on why is Benjani always around Hangwani's assets, properties. And remember, in Hyde Park, they are reported to live next to each other. I just thought it was something that we should point out. Now, there's something very serious that I want to also point out in respect to the SIU unit asset seizures and everything that has been happening. And it's an important thing that I want to point out. The murder of Babita Deokaran was in August of 2021. That was over 4 years and 1 month ago. 1,492 days. It basically took the SIU 1,500 days to take the cars and properties which were accumulated locally by Hangwani Maumela. 1,492 days after Babita was killed, not after the looting started, right? The looting had been going on for much longer. Now, the question I have is, does an investigation take that long? And secondly, is that justice or is it a distraction, an attempt to take away attention from the unfolding events as a result of General Mkhwanazi's allegations? Because I don't think any of this would have happened in this timeline at this pace if General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi had not done that press conference on the 6th of July. I find the timing of the SIU unit events, firstly, the press conference, which happened on day one of the General Dumisani Khumalo testimony to the Madlanga Commission, and the second event, which happened yesterday on the 9th of October, on day one of the General Masemola testimony. I find those to be strategic red herrings. And the red herring is a fallacy of logic and argumentation. It's an attempt, and sometimes it can be very effective, to get the audience to pay attention to something which is close to the issue, but is not necessarily at the heart of the issue. It's an attempt at distraction, at diversion, and in this instance, I think it was done strategically. And I think that, if you pay attention to who the SIU reports to, you may see that this is the president's attempt to look as if he's doing something about this. Now, the book, 48 Laws of Power, which I have right here, right? One of the rules there is Law 26, which is basically what I think is happening here. Now, Law 26, where is it at? Right here, Law 26. I love pages, when you go to church, you become a stickler for detail, and you become somebody who wants to say on this page. So Law 26 is at page 200. 200, exactly 200. Keep your hands clean. That's Law 26. And it basically says you must seem to be, and let's think about who they're describing here and if it applies to certain people. You must seem to be a paragon of civility and efficiency. Your hands are never soiled by mistakes and nasty deeds. Maintain such a spotless appearance by using others as scapegoats and cat paws to disguise your involvement. This law advises maintaining a spotless appearance. Who is often loved and praised by the media? Who is often shocked by things? I didn't know this was happening. I'm shocked. I'm perplexed. I'm bewildered. I'm bemused. I'm befuddled. Who does that? Who is that fellow? Who's that fellow who the markets love? Who was being described in particular ways as, the second coming of Nelson Mandela, but better? Huh? New Dawn. Isn't this what that's describing? Using others as scapegoats? It looks like right now, Hangwani Maumela is one of the scapegoats. I don't think there's one, but I think he's the scapegoat and the red meat, because the public is angry. The public wants some action. So you have to look busy. You have to look as if action is finally happening. You have to try to make it seem as if General Mkhwanazi is not the only person who is the source of action, as if, the long game is finally kicking in. I don't think that any of this stuff would have happened outside of the events of the 6th of July and everything that led to this commission and this ad hoc committee. And it looks as if we're now being given this asset forfeiture as something to hold on to bite. Look at these blue cars. Look at this big mansion, and not ask the big questions. How did this guy do this? Which political connections allowed him to do this? How did he use the name of the president? His relationship with the president? Did he use his relationships with Benjani Chauke? Who are his backers within the ANC? Who are his backers within the Gauteng Department of Health? The people above him are of interest. It's not just important to know who's below him in terms of Vusi Matlala and Katiso Molefe and maybe even Sibia, but who above him was facilitating all of this? Now, I want us to think about something here quickly, and then we're going to move to the next topic. Think about this. Amand Swart was shot 23 times in April of 2024. Babita herself was shot 12 times in 2021. This year, in June of 2025, Mpoma Fole's vehicle was sprayed with bullets. He died. He lost his life. These murders were all associated with Hosh curry behavior. These are violent deaths. But how many more people have died in the hospitals across Gauteng as a result of the looting of these Hosh curry dons? The death toll is probably in the thousands, if we're being honest. It is comparable to deaths in a war zone. This Hosh curry behavior has led, I submit to you, to thousands of deaths, possibly tens of thousands of deaths if we think about it fully. Then the question becomes, what is the real justice for those who died directly from the bullets of the Hosh fathers and those who died as a result of the fact that they could not get a doctor on time, a nurse on time, medicines on time, dialysis machines on time, various other complex treatments on time. What is the consequence of those people who lost their babies while they were waiting for help in the maternity wards? Right now, do we really believe that Hangwani Maumela is sleeping on a floor somewhere, eating, what's that porridge that you mix with water only? Is that what we think? That's what I used to eat when I was in medical school. And, we used to walk from, where was I? I was in Brixton. I'd walk from Brixton all the way to Wits Medical School. I'd get there exhausted and I'd only had that Movite porridge. And it was long days. But, so just a flashback. That he's not sleeping on a floor. He's not sleeping on a floor, is he? If we're being honest. Think about it. The SIU was established by the president in terms of the Special Investigating Units and Special Tribunal Act of 1996 to investigate corruption and maladministration in the public sector. It's an independent statutory body that is accountable to the president and parliament, but president mainly in terms of its activities. The mandate is to recover and prevent financial losses to the state caused by acts of corruption, fraud, and maladministration. The SIU can only investigate when the president has issued proclamation authorizing such an investigation. They investigate, they litigate civil matters, and they refer criminal matters to state agencies, right? So that's what they do. They can only refer criminal investigations to other state agencies. Now you have to ask yourself, who else has been investigated? What's happened there? Is an SIU investigation justice? That's what I'm trying to get to. If I was a phone thief on Mandela Bridge and you had a child going to Wits University and I bumped into your child and I took their life and took their phone, then the police come 4 years later, 4 years from the date of me stealing that iPhone, and they give you the phone back with the cracked screen. But I'm still out and about, and you hear now that in fact I've moved on from stealing phones. Now I'm involved in car hijackings. Now I'm involved in, house robberies. But I'm living large somewhere in Sandton. I'm driving a fancy car. You know me, I'm known. I'm even planning to visit Disneyland with my family. You can see my Instagram. I'm dating Hosh mamas, yellow bones with yellow thighs. I'm going everywhere. I'm eating in the fanciest restaurants. Would it be justice for you and your family that you got that phone back? Is it justice? That's a question that I think we should all consider. SIU investigations, they're not criminal investigations. They don't lead to arrests. Let's think about Edwin Sodi, who was the last Hosh Don who was exposed in an SIU unit investigation. They went to his property. They seized all kinds of cars. We saw the property. We're like, oh, this is a beautiful property. He's the owner of the company Blackhead Consulting. His company was contracted by the Free State Department of Human Settlements to remove asbestos. 2014 contract. He made billions from that deal. Prior to that, he was dealing with the Gauteng Province Department of Human Settlements as well. Made billions in that arrangement. His properties and cars were seized in 2020. Remember that? The media was there. It was a big hoo-ha. And then in 2023, 3 years later, we heard that people were dying of cholera in Hammanskraal because of water contamination. Sewage in the water made people sick. 21 lives were reported lost due to the outbreak of cholera. The man, Edwin Sodi, was once again linked to the events. Some companies, CMS Water Engineering, together with Edwin Sodi's companies, NJR Projects and Blackhead Consulting, they formed a consortium that was awarded a tender to upgrade a water treatment plant meant to supply clean water to the people of Hammanskraal. The people of Hammanskraal did not get clean water. They got contaminated water. They got sick. 21 lives lost. But there was an SIU unit asset seizure in 2020. Edwin Sodi right now, still living large. Is there real accountability from that process of SIU unit investigations? The tap may have been closed for him in the Free State Province. His companies went to another source of revenue. They caused more damage. People lost lives. As things stand right now, Edwin Sodi is the owner of 2 of the largest nightclubs in South Africa. Right? When his assets were seized and then sold on auction, he went and bought them all back. And right now, his Hosh Mama is still posting some of the most affluent content on TikTok, Instagram. Now she's actually taken down a lot of it, but we've seen it already. He hosted very powerful people at his 50th birthday party. Hangwani Maumela was there as well. Several ANC people were there as well. As far as we can tell, he's going strong. He's the owner of Live in Sandton, Live in Cape Town. People go there, they revel. We also know what nightclubs have been implicated in. Think about that. Is that accountability? Is it really accountability? If that's the reality. We must understand also that the attempt to make us focus just on Tembisa Hospital is in and of itself a misleading misdirection, because these people were not just operating in the Tembisa Hospital. They were doing tenders across the board. Remember, Aman Swat was shot 23 times because he was believed to be the whistleblower who exposed the corruption at Transnet. Auditors killed in Ekhuruleni, other corruption that they were exposing. This hoshkari behavior is not just happening in one sector. There's money laundering, there's kidnapping, there's arms dealing, drug dealing, these government corrupt activities, there's car hijackings, there's smuggling. All of these things are being done by the same people. We need to understand the full extent of the problem, not just simply to be pacified, which is what it's an attempt to. Remember, there's the book Manufacturing Consent. We have to be very aware. Whenever you see journalists show up to a government event and over-profile that event, you sometimes must think about, is this manufacturing of consent? Am I being pacified, nullified? Am I being put into a state where I feel like something is happening, whereas the perpetrators of those activities are still at large? The paymasters of all of the hitmen are still at large. You have to ask yourself that, right? Remember, there have been protests in Mauritius. The youth, not Mauritius, Madagascar. The youth of Madagascar have been protesting. Gen Z, protesting against water supply disruptions. They've been protesting against electricity supply disruptions. And the president of Madagascar is in trouble. They've been protesting in Nepal. We saw how young people protested in Nepal and they changed the government. And if you just go over a few years, you've seen young people in Kenya this year, was it this year or last year, when they were protesting? They protested last year and this year in Kenya. And they were frustrated with the levels of corruption. So whenever those in power see that the public is getting agitated, angry, frustrated, and finding heroes that they think can take action, they sometimes throw meat to the crowd. So they say, here's something, here's someone. But then you ask yourself, is that justice? Understand that this scandal is exposing the work of a group of people who've been involved in dealing drugs, all of this other stuff. We know Hangwani Maumela to an extent, but we don't even know what he looks like. Outside of some of the videos I've shared and some of that one video from Edwin Sodi's party. But where is his, you know what I look like. How come you don't know what Hangwani Maumela looks like? Have you ever heard his voice? This man who has caused so much damage to the South African economy. Who are his protectors? You remember there was a book, The President's Keepers. They're saying these are the people who keep the president. Who are Hangwani Maumela's keepers? You know, now the media and all of the people who are participating in exposing the Guptas, they cannot change the blueprint now. You told us who the president's keepers are. Who are Hangwani Maumela's keepers? Why don't you tell us that? I don't think people don't know. I think they don't want to look. And that's why I think sometimes they get angry when I ask, why have you not actually gone further? And why have you cooled off? And why are we not being shown all of this other stuff? Let me keep moving. This is bigger than the Tembisa Hospital. And it's time that we try to look at the full picture and not just one side of hoshkari behavior. Focusing on one side allows those people to keep using their business model and to keep causing harm. Justice cannot simply be that at some point they had some money taken from them, but they can still go to Disneyland. They can still have lavish events for their friends, their family members, etc. Let's move and talk about what the National Police Commissioner, General Hangwani Maumela, spoke about in Parliament yesterday. He covered a lot of topics in the 7 hours of his testimony. He summarized his police career. He spoke about budget issues of the political killings task team. He spoke about the briefings that happened about the political task team and Minister Senzo Mchunu. He spoke about the decision to disband the task team, how he met General Mkhwanazi and his opinions of him, the role of the media. The media, right? That's part of it. No, I don't think media should act like they were coronated as a saint somewhere. You know, saint media of where in the Vatican. There's no such. The judges also, there's no such. Some people don't want to be scrutinized and analyzed, but they want others to be scrutinized and analyzed. And I think that is inconsistency. So some highlights included his discussion of the job security of national commissioners. He spoke about how it's low and kind of explains why he was very cautious in moving when certain instructions were coming from Minister Mchunu. And it's because of the power of the national commissioner that there's often a lot of political machinations around him. He says there are always plans being devised to remove national commissioners. And this forms part of a broader revelation about internal sabotage, political interference, and attempts to manipulate leadership within the South African police service. On the effectiveness of policing, he says policing is difficult and challenging due to limited resources, the rapid growth of the population, and the violent nature of crime. And of course, it's obvious that also now that it's because these criminals, the ones who are in organized crime, the Hosh curry cartels, are actually infiltrating the police themselves and also infiltrating executive leadership. He admitted that there's a shortfall with regard to the vetting process within the South African Police Service. He suggested there should be external vetings. He was asking that the ICU should be the one who does it. I don't know if ICU is the one, but he says that he should do it. One of the things I observed, it should be ICU. One of the things I observed yesterday in the Sibia search, in the search and seizure process, was the extent of the property. That man is living beautifully. I don't think that's police salary money. I really, that gate, that wall, the security features that he's attached, that yellow gate and that wall, I think people should have actually asked him some questions. I mean, look, that's lavish living, you know? So I think, that idea is important because he said, in as much as we've done our own lifestyle audits, he's approached the SIU, come and vet us so that we want to be vetted by an independent body. He doesn't undermine the internal, but he thinks it's better to have it done externally. I think it should be done externally. I don't think it should be done necessarily by SIU because you have to wait for a presidential proclamation. They take 4 years to come back and report back. That sounds like it's too long, right? On the political killings task team, he says one of the flaws of the previous team was that it was working in silos without prosecutor-guided investigations. In 2018, the political killings task team then sought the assistance of the NPA with advocates who were dedicated to supporting the team. He also told the committee how he came to know, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. This is what he had to say.
With him.
Well, I know him as a police official, a young man. In the organization. I think I knew him many years ago. I'm not sure.
He was a youngster in KZN.
Yeah, I was still a youngster in KZN. I was by then a director. That was a brigadier then. I was a unit commander of the public order police in Durban. I think somewhere in the year 2000 or 2001, and he was around he came at the unit where I was for special task force selection, and they went for selection in the premises, and at some point, I don't know what happened there. Looks like the instructors cheated them in terms of points during selection. Like if you run or you jump certain kilos or you run whatever obstacles within certain minutes, you pass. You don't do this, you fail. So how I know him, he just walked into my office at some point and he said to me, and he can't tolerate what is happening there. The beggar says, but I mean, who are you? What do you want? Then he explained himself that I think he was from Public Order Police, Porshepston. He's here for selection for task force, and either two of them and him were robbed or cheated. On the selection, they are being made to fail, whereas there's one or two white guys that came behind them. They were made to pass. And so I said, okay, I could see that he was very unhappy. So I went there, the back. Well, I wasn't in charge of those people. They just came to use my premises for selection. So I went to see the instructor and ask as to what was happening. And did find that, yeah, indeed there is a problem in terms of how they made some pass and some fail. And I said, no, you must rectify this. And they rectified it immediately. And he went for the special task force training, and he came back stationed at special task force Durban. He worked there. I forgot about him. And then one day he ventured again in my office and say, no, and I can't tolerate what's happening there because the whites are oppressing them and this and that. He wants to go out of this unit. And then I said, okay, how many Africans you are there? I think there were 2 or 3 amongst over 20 or 8 or 12 whites.
On the Mchunu matter, and his involvement in the disbandment, he said that the national, on Senzo Mchunu and his involvement in the disbandment, General Fani Masemola said that Senzo Mchunu was only briefed about it on the 31st of December. He was clear that it was surprising and a huge problem that, Senzo Mchunu disbanded the team in the way he did, based on the letter written by Mary Diaz and arguments around, budget constraints. This is some of what he said around that.
Mary Diaz, she writes a letter every week. If you're going to disband the unit out of that, surely there is then there is huge problems. With regard to budget constraints, there have been budget constraints all along, but does it mean if there are budget constraints, the minister would not talk to me? He'll jump and go to CFO and take decisions. That's quite strange if that's the case. So I don't find any cogent reason out of this 4. I don't find any reason that definitely hold water that you could go alone and decide to write a letter of disbandment. Well, surely you could have engaged to say, these are the reasons and this is what I'm thinking. Then we can then discuss with the minister and look at what is the real facts. Meriti House will say political task team have got no mandate to exist, is useless, have got no, does not have successes. But we know those that now and then you read, you see the convictions they are having now and then. So it depends where she's writing from. But if you're writing from really this country, you should be aware.
In respect to the tender which was won by Vusi Matlala, he said he was not involved in awarding of the tender process involving Medicare 24. He told the ad hoc committee that at first he didn't know the person behind Medicare 24 or Vusi Matlala, but he only received a call from one member of IDEC informing him that the company is being investigated in the contract involving the Tembisa Hospital. He says that he cancelled the 360 million Medicare 20 district contract in April following an internal audit. That's the audit that they started in about December, where Vusi Matlala was now under pressure, talking to Brown Mkhotsi, all of that, detailing poor service among others. He says the contract hasn't currently been replaced. They're working on re-advertising it. Then he also touched on the media. He urged media houses to report responsibly as spreading falsehoods is wrong and destructive. And he adds that there are journalists who are paid to do dirty work. He said that there are journalists who are being paid to do dirty work. Now, journalists, if they were vigilant, they'd say, who are these journalists who are amongst us doing dirty work, or who are proxies for politicians and publish only positive articles about some people, negative articles about others? They write, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? And then when the evidence is produced, they go quiet. Then they come back later with other complaints. But what about this? But what about that? But they never praise. They never give credit. This is what he had to say.
Go as far as that, maybe I will not go as far as that. We do engage SANEF now and then, and we will continue engaging them. But what should be clear is that in as much as they enjoy media freedom, we also as individuals and as organizations, we do have rights, and they must respect those rights. We are human beings like them, and spreading falsehood is not the correct thing to do. You are just damaging, not necessarily attacking Masemola as an individual, but you are also causing more damage to the organization with those type of falsehoods. So I wouldn't go as far as say maybe state security investigate. No, I think there is a body of that controls the media. That body should be accountable for their members, and they should call on them to report responsibly. You can't just go out, report anything that you pick up from anybody.
Yeah, if it seems to be pretty obvious that if you allege, like Lieutenant Nkwenazi has done, that some journalists are being paid, because that's really where he comes from. And I don't know if it happens in your case, they're being paid to spread stories, false stories, or plant false stories. Then one must get to the root cause. And those are the people who are apparently involved in criminal syndicates, drug syndicates, and paying journalists. Those are the ones one must go after and catch them.
Yeah, if you investigate, yes, you can investigate those that pays them. Of course, that statement is not necessarily to say is a lie. It's not a false. It's not a lie. There are those that are being paid to do this type of dirty work.
Yeah, and of course you've got recourse. Like you've highlighted in this affidavit, there's nothing stopping you from complaining to the press ombud, lodging a complaint, and the press ombud must investigate your complaint.
No, I agree, Honorable Chair. Thanks very much.
I think the mainstream media is part of manufacturing consent. I think they play a role to keep incumbent leadership in power. There's a book by Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman, and it speaks on this. Please get yourself a copy of this book. Please. It's very important so that you can understand the relationship that administrations have with the media, the way that they manipulate the media by feeding them certain information, feeding journalists certain information, giving certain people access to themselves so that they can control public opinion. And whenever you see certain things happening, you have to be aware that this could be a form of manipulation by the elites. If a leader is preferred by the elites who own the media houses, right? Media houses in South Africa owned by just a handful of people, most of them Stellenbosch billionaires or people associated with Stellenbosch. Those people and the companies who advertise prominently in those media houses, right? They actually are part of the manufacturing of consent. If those elites like the incumbent, there's a different tempo in how agenda is set around the incumbent and coverage of the issues which implicate the incumbent. So the media wasn't even very willing to criticize national dialogue, right? They've not been willing to criticize the failures to create employment, etc. They'll keep trying to massage certain elements. They won't be scathing. Zuma never got that treatment. Think about how Thabo Mbeki was treated when he was wrong on the HIV matter. They came for him hard. Sometimes they don't do that in the New Dawn days. I mean, it's as clear as daylight to me that in the New Dawn, some people have been criticized less by the same voices who were vocal in the Zuma days. It's clear to me, it's clear as day, that the media has not been as pushy under Ramaphosa as they were under Zuma, right? And that's perhaps because corporate South Africa backed President Ramaphosa. He was predominantly their candidate. They've contributed to his presidential project management office. They're involved in various things within that same Operation Vulindlela. He's been privatizing things. Many people have made a lot of money in that privatization process. You know, and as much as you keep hearing the South African economy is bad, whatever, those companies are all posting profits. Medical aid is going up. A lot of things are going up. Those companies with shiny buildings in Sandton, all making money, hand over fist, Capitec, hand over fist. They make money, then they give that money to the DA, freedom under law, etc., to actually work in ways that sometimes undermine the interests of the black majority in South Africa, right? So, I mean, this could be the reason why he's not criticized. And also, there's this whole, if we criticize this man and he falls, then we get the doomsday scenario. We get MK and EFF and coalition. with ANC and Paul Mashatile, he will destroy South Africa. Jacob Zuma didn't destroy South Africa. He actually was much better in terms of economic indicators than Cyril Ramaphosa. And, when he came into power, they were like, oh, Mchini Wam, he's singing Mchini Wam. If this Mchini, why is he promoting violence? What is the Mchini Wam? What is this machine that he wants to wam with? Media. And Jacob Zuma actually was not somebody who was affected the profits of business. They were making money more than the rand was stronger than it is now. And all of that things that they were saying about him actually turned out to not be true. His administration now was much better. And some of the corruption that is now being exposed here is much worse. It's much worse than what was happening under Zuma. But the consistency is not there. And globally, the mainstream media has lost credibility because of hypocrisy and inconsistency. And the public understanding of how mainstream media has been used to manipulate them has caused media to lack credibility. They're supposed to be more robust in response to the information that is coming from the public. That you can't keep playing favorites, turning a blind eye to certain issues. And remember, one person is not the media. There are some journalists I admire. Sakina Kamwendo, that's my goat. Shout out. That's my goat. Many journalists that do good work. But when we are talking about the body, the collective, the media, we're not just talking about one person. We're talking about the practices of the industry. And I don't think that we can say 10 out of 10 performance. I don't think we can say that. I think when we talk about judges, they do well overall. And there are concerns about some decisions, some types of movements. For example, how long does it take to make the Phala judgment? Why are you taking time with that? That's a legitimate criticism of the Constitutional Court. But that's not to say that the Constitutional Court is a flawed structure or that they're not necessarily good or that that court has not had judgments which have been amazing for accountability, transparency, social rights, all of that. No, that's not to say that. But if you were to say, where's the Phala judgment from that case which was argued last year, would you then now be saying that no, judges must fall? Who would think that reasonably? I mean, if the media keeps doing this, over time, they'll keep losing the public trust. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And you can't just attack anybody who comes at you. Like Mkhwanazi said what he said. And even if, you disagree with the policy suggestions, he's giving his input, his views on what he's seen about the media. And then everyone is like, no, you can't say that. We are the media. How you guys? Jesus left you when he ascended. What Jesus said? I'm leaving you with the Holy Spirit and media. So you guys can't be criticized at all. I don't think that's a rational response. I think there's great journalists, there's great authors, and then there's also people who need to be examined. And the media, Pravin Gordhan was very happy to condemn particular media houses. He would say, no, ANN7, this and that one is not a good. How come that was justified and okay for him to do? And him criticizing ANN7 and some of these other publications, New Age. But now we can't say, but why is your reporting on these other things inconsistent? I don't think that's something that is worthwhile or good that is happening in terms of the way the media voices are responding to this. But that's what happened. What do you guys think? Let's have a conversation in the comment section. I'll meet you there.